By the 10th century of the Anno Kechistani, the fragile distance that had long separated Sanctuary from the greater powers of creation was slowly coming to an end, though this time, the boundaries wouldn't be broken down by mortal ambition nor through the slow drift of history, but instead through the upheaval of the very depths of hell itself. Within the burning hells, the hierarchy that by now had endured for ages began to fracture. The dominion of the three primevals, Diablo, Mephisto, and Baal, had never been uncontested, but for a long period, it had remained unbroken. This balance was ended in the year of 964, when a vast portion of Hell's denizens rose up in rebellion. The uprising was led by the lesser evils, most notably Asmodan and Belial, who saw an opportunity to claim the tyrannical throne of Hell for themselves, and what followed was a massive open war that tore through the realms of Hell, a violent conflict that was driven purely by the raw and unrestrained demonic ambition of the two of the lesser evil. Yet the other half of the Lesser Four did not embrace this rebellion, and Ariel, the Maiden of Anguish, and Duriel, the Lord of Pain, would remain steadfast in their allegiance to the three primevals. And though their loyalty would do little to alter the outcome of the conflict, they would ultimately refuse to join Asmodan and Belial's revolt, standing instead with the brothers they had long served until the very end. The forces of Hell suddenly turned upon one another, reshaping their own domains in the process, until the authority of the primevals broke and collapsed under the weight of rebellion. Yet while the three brothers lost the war, they weren't destroyed in the same manner as enemies would be in the mortal realm, for such an end to their very beings was far beyond even their enemies of the burning hells. Instead, they were cast out, stripped of their dominion, and forcibly exiled into the mortal realm. This would mark the beginning of the age, which would come to be known as the Dark Exile. For the first time since the creation of Sanctuary, the primevals were no longer confined to the burning hells. They had been cast into the world of humanity itself, where their influence could take roots in ways far more insidious than direct open war upon Sanctuary. In the aftermath of their banishment, the burning hells continued to spiral deeper into turmoil, for without the primevals to keep the lesser demons in check, the evolving chaos would continue to unfold without being contested. Amongst those who remain, power shifted rapidly, and new demonic figures sought to rise within the hierarchy, within the power vacuum that was left behind. Among all of these entities was a demon by the name of Skarn, a former lieutenant of Diablo himself, who drew upon the remnants of his master's power to carve out a domain for himself within the realms of the burning hells. From the stolen strength of the Lord of Terror, Skarn reshaped his former master's realm of damnation, a region formed from the chaos of hell itself, a realm sustained through ambition and force rather than established order. During this time, a group of angelic sentinels, hunters of demonic forces outside of the eternal conflict, led by an angel by the name of Raphael, discovered the realm of damnation as it was evolving. Yet in their discovery on this expedition, they were cut off from the high heavens and unable to return, now trapped within the realm. With no path of escape, they established a foothold within the hostile domain, and from here they would hold their ground against all of the Dominion's forces. This fight would continue for decades, with the angels trapped within the inferno, unable to leave, as the raging changes continued outside of their conflict. And while hell descended further into chaos, the true consequences of the Dark Exile would unfold within the realm of Sanctuary. The primevals, weakened after their defeat in hell, had to rethink their approach within the mortal realm. They had to be measured, deliberate, They had to slowly spread their influence through corruption rather than force, manifesting themselves within humanity in patient increments. At this time, Sanctuary was still rebuilding and reshaping itself after the Age of Faith, which would prove to make humanity as a whole vulnerable to influence. It almost seemed as if the Dark Exile had come at the worst possible time for humanity, almost as if it had been pre-planned with a vicious and deliberate intent. Yet even as the corruption of the primevals continued spreading across Sanctuary in the shadows and corners, there were those who immediately recognized the danger for what it truly was. Hidden far from the kingdoms and cities of mankind, the priests of Rakma had watched the unfolding consequences of the Dark Exile with growing concern. They had remained distant from the struggles of kings, faiths, and mortal ambition alike, but the arrival of the primevals within Sanctuary now meant that there existed a threat to far more than human civilization alone. It was a threat to the very balance of the realm itself. To the necromancers, the exile of the three primevals represented a dangerous shift in the equilibrium between heaven, hell, and the mortal realm. It is generally believed that during these years, the priests of Rakma began quietly guiding events from the shadows, watching the movements and influence of the primevals, as well as the forces that was gathering against them. For while the majority of humanity remained oblivious to the catastrophe that was slowly taking shape around them, the Guardians of Balance understood that Sanctuary had by now entered one of the most dangerous periods of its history. Yet the exile of the three primevals would not only catch the attention of the priests of Rakma, for in the high heavens, the exile into Sanctuary made the Angerous Council weary of what the consequences might be of the primevals no longer being confined to the burning hells. This time, however, the angels chose not to engage in direct conflict, and instead the Archangel Tyrael decided to act through mortal agents. Around the year 1004, Tyrael gathered a group of human champions and entrusted them with a singular purpose. These individuals would form an order that would simply come to be known as the Order, the Crusaders of Light, but also as the Brotherhood of the Horadrim. Their members were taken from the various mage clans of the East, but their membership of the Order was not selected due to any particular wisdom or reverence, but instead because they were who Tyrael personally deemed the most likely to succeed in this crucial task. The many different mages would set aside their grievances and differences to accomplish this massive undertaking, and the mage Tal Rasha was appointed as their leader. The Order was also given powerful artifacts capable of containing demonic essence, artifacts that would be named the Soul Stones. They would become the sentinels of Sanctuary, the hunters of the primevals. Since the very act of destroying anything that was part of the burning hells permanently was an impossibility, Tyrael understood that another approach had to be utilized if the primevals were to be contained and Sanctuary was ever to achieve peace. Instead of the permanent destruction of the primevals, the Horadrim was tasked to find them, bind them, and contain their influence within the Soul Stone to permanently keep them confined. As a tool for this incomprehensible task, the Order created the Horadric Cube, a powerful artifact designed to aid in tracking, binding, and containing the primevals, enabling the Horadrim to carry out their mission where ordinary means would fail. And so, the Horadrim would begin their work with methodical determination. After 5 years of searching, in the year of 1009, the Order would succeed in locating Mephisto around the city of Apokia. Mephisto was defeated and his essence was contained within the Soul Stone, but the fight to contain the primeval had cost thousands of innocent lives, and Apokia was leveled, prompting the Horadrim to vow to never confront a primeval within a populated area again. After the battle had been won and Mephisto had been contained, the others sought to carry out their duty, and with the Soul Stone they bound the primeval within. They concealed him beneath a Zakarum temple in what would later become known as the city of Korast. The containment of Mephisto marked both the first success of the Horadrim, but also their first failure due to the death and destruction that had been left in its wake. Tal Rasha had a monument erected at the ruins of Abukir, which according to a Horadric librarian was to remind us that Sanctuary has no future if we do not tend to her present. The Horadrim would also build the Guardian Tower as a prison for the primeval and entrusted Mephisto's Soulstone to the emergent Order of Zakarum, a mistake that would ultimately have dire consequences centuries later. Yet even amidst the Horadrim's growing success, the seeds of another danger had already begun to take root within the Order itself. For within the Horadrim existed a mage whose brilliance surpassed nearly all others, one by the name of Sultan Kul. He was a scholar and a sorcerer of extraordinary intellect, a man who believed that the struggle against the primevals demanded more than mere containment. From his perspective, the imprisonment of these demons within the Soulstones was only delaying the inevitable, for as long as the primevals endured, no matter what shape or form they took, Sanctuary would never truly be free. And so Kul sought another solution: control. Where others within the Horadrim viewed the Soulstones as prisons, Kul saw them as tools through which humanity might one day master the powers of both heaven and hell alike. His convictions and studies would take him deep into forbidden knowledge. The understanding of demonic essence, ancient blood magic, and the hidden nature of the Soulstones themselves became the prime focus of all of his experiments. Over time, Corwood began pursuing the creation of an artifact unlike any other that the world had ever seen: the creation of the Black Soulstone. Unlike the original Soulstones given to humanity by the Angel Tyrael, which were able to imprison only individual demons, Cole envisioned a vessel capable of containing all demonic essence on a far greater scale. Not surprisingly, within the Order, Cole's vision was greeted with a difference in opinion. For to some within the Horadrim, his ideas represented the essence of humanity's greatest hope, but to others, they represented inevitable cataclysmic catastrophe. And unfortunately, as Cole's knowledge continued to grow, so too did his arrogance. He increasingly came to believe that mankind should no longer remain subordinate to either heaven or hell, that humanity, who after all descended from the Nephilim, possessed the potential to surpass both realms. And in pursuit of that belief, Cole's methods became increasingly monstrous. He would dive deeper into forbidden rituals and expand into human experimentation, the manipulation of life and death itself. And at last, he had gone so far that the Horadrim concluded that one of their own had become far too dangerous to be allowed to live. And so the Brotherhood turned upon Kul. The great mage was slain, his body dismembered, his works hidden, and his name condemned by the very order he had once served. But as it would turn out, even in death, Kul's influence upon Sanctuary would be far greater than anyone could have ever dared to imagine. Despite the fact that the Horadrim feared what he had become, some of them could truly never fully dismiss the terrible possibility hidden within his beliefs: the fact that humanity stood far closer to godhood than either angels or demons ever wanted to admit. In the wake of Cole's demise, the Horadrim would continue the task of hunting the primevals, a task which would turn out to be a daunting one, and the mages often lost the demons' trails, having to spend valuable time scouring through regions and cities before being able to pick it up again. In time though, in the following year of 1010, Diablo and Baal ventured across the Twin Seas to the deserts of Aranok, and emboldened by their success against Mephisto, the Horadrim engaged in hot pursuit. Yet aware of the Horadrim's presence, Baal took refuge inside the city of Lut Gholein, and because of this, Tal Rasha ordered the Horadrim to hold back, this time ensuring that no innocents would be caught in the crossfire. Baal then headed north into the desert for a few miles before the Horadrim, undeterred by the harsh environment, attacked him again. In the confrontation and battle that followed, the bloodshed would be vicious and violent. In the chaos, Baal fled, and Tal Rasha himself followed him. Though various accounts disagree on the hows and whys of what came to pass in the second battle that followed, they all agree on one thing. The Soul Stone intended to contain the primeval was damaged, essentially rendering it unstable, and faced with no other alternative, the leader of the Horadrim, Tal Rasha, chose to bind Baal within the flawed Soul Stone, using his own body as a vessel. It was at this point that the Archangel Tyrael appeared, leading the Horadrim to an old burial chamber. And here, a binding stone with runes of containment was built, and Tal Rasha ordered his brethren to chain him to it. As the Brotherhood of the Horadrim looked on in sorrow, Tyrael jammed the Soul Stone shard into Tal Rasha's heart, and at that moment, sealing his fate. With heavy hearts, the Horadrim sealed the chamber and left their leader behind. In the wake of Tal Rasha's sacrifice, a man by the name of Jared Kane would become the leader of the Order of the Horadrim, and the Brotherhood would continue their hunt for the last of the primevals, Diablo. This hunt would span almost a decade, and their pursuit took them into the western lands of Conjuras, where Diablo, along with his demonic army, was finally confronted. Through a bloody and violent clash, the Order was in the end successful in overcoming both Diablo and his minions, and the Lord of Terror was finally sealed within his Soul Stone. The stone was to be buried deep beneath the earth near the river Tal Sande, and to safeguard the site, a monastery was constructed above it, which would act as both a place of worship as well as a prison. And so at last, with the capture of the three primevals, the immediate threat of the Dark Exile had been contained. The Horadric Order had, against all odds and massive sacrifices, managed to safeguard both humanity as well as Sanctuary. And though they all understood that Sanctuary could truly never be free, and that they would never be able to rest with the three primeval's influence lurking beneath the surface of their confinements, this massive objective that they had completed was an accomplishment of divine magnitudes. The primevals were bound, their physical forms imprisoned within the Soul Stones and hidden across the world. The work of the Horadrim had prevented catastrophe, but alas, the eternal conflict must continue, and so in the end, all the Horadrim had truly managed to do was only to delay the inevitable. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the exclusive Gitchy Boy, the exclusive War Monk, the exclusive The Cayute, and the exclusive Rat. The VIPs, Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doug Powell, Dustin the Grim, Fritz, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jim and Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Fornell, Mordev Menace, Mr. Mouse, Ryan, Slip, Stas Piestic, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you want to support the channel, then consider signing up as a member either here on YouTube or on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one.